bit milder on Saturday, but obviously not feeling all that pleasant with the breeze and the rain. That scoots away, and Sunday compared to Saturday looking much drier and much brighter, with the winds a touch lighter as well. Goodbye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as the government's booster police threaten to use our liberty as a ransom for jabs, I'll tell Boris to leave the authoritarian approach to Ardern, Trudeau and Macron in my digest. Before I get the view of my superstar panel tonight, the columnist and broadcaster Carol McGiffin, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and journalist Amy Nicole. The Spectator's very brave associate editor Douglas Murray has gone out on a limb today and declared the pandemic over. But has he jumped the gun with that bold prediction? I have to say I agree with him, but I'll discuss that more later in Uncancelled. With sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell facing dying behind bars, is the sexual abuse ordeal of one of the jurors who convicted her grounds for an appeal? US broadcasting star Megyn Kelly joins me live at 9:40 to explain what's next in the saga and what it could all mean for Prince Andrew. Is the Pope right, this is a controversial one, to accuse people who have pets instead of children as selfish and diminishing our humanity? Right, Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden will be in the Pontiff's Corner on that one, and he'll go head-to-head with the theatre legend Christopher Biggins in the clash. How do we tackle Twitter's chilling censorship of free-thinking conservatives? Well, former Trump senior advisor turned tech pioneer Jason Miller is on a mission to erase cancel culture from social media for good. He'll be here at 10:20. The cost of living crisis threatens to hit Britain's poorest families the hardest, so why is Jacob Rees-Mogg the only minister standing up against the Labour-like national insurance hike? TV News star Mark Dolan is tonight's outsider, asking why the Commons leader is the only true Conservative in Boris Johnson's cabinet. As Nicola Sturgeon starts snapping at journalists and the party is accused of using dodgy data to justify its COVID hysteria, is the SNP coronavirus strategy starting to unravel? Plus, after it was revealed female patients are more likely to die under a male surgeon's knife, should women only be operated on by other women? We'll debate those topics and more of the day's big stories in the Media Buzz later. Plus, we'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, crown another greatest Briton and Union Jackass before the end of the show as well. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. The zero-COVID fanatics in Australia have lost the plot. At this hour, tennis ace Novak Djokovic remains imprisoned in an Australian quarantine hotel, and the country and a lot of the world is divided over whether he should have been allowed in after applying for a vaccine exemption. His parents are leading the charge against the draconian Australian quarantine system that I've rallied against for the past 2 years, to be completely honest. Here's what his mum had to say.
As a mother, what can I say? If you are a mother, you can just imagine how can I feel. I feel terrible since yesterday, last 24 hours, that they are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair. It's not human.
It's insane. It's insane. His father just as passionate, saying they wanted to underestimate him and are keeping him in prison. He is not in detention, he is in prison. They took all of his stuff, even his wallet. They only left him his mobile phone. He cannot change his clothes, he cannot wash. He is in prison. Now look, whatever you think about Djokovic's take on the vaccine, this is an appalling way to treat a visitor to your country and a sporting hero who just wants to live his dream of playing tennis. Australia's got this whole pandemic wrong, and by continuing to treat visitors like this, all you're doing is making the whole situation worse. It's a really, really bad one. My digest coming up in just a moment, then reaction from my superstar panel. Let's get a first look at them in 2022. It is the loose women's star, the columnist, the broadcaster Carol McGiffin, the political commentator extraordinaire Dominique Samuels, and the author and journalist Amy Nicholson. Girl power on the panel tonight. I like it. I think it's going to be feisty. But before all of that, the news with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Here are the top stories. The government has defended plans to increase national insurance. It comes after Commons leader Jacob Rees-Mogg asked the move to be scrapped to help families cope with the cost of living. From April, it's set to rise by 1.25%. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says it's a historic decision to try and save the NHS and social care.
We think it's absolutely right that we do two things. One, clear up the very big backlog of operations and procedures that haven't been able to take place because the NHS has been so remarkably dealing with coronavirus. And two, make sure that we deal with the long-term problem of social care.
Boris Johnson has hit out at what he's calling mumbo-jumbo of anti-vaccination campaigns on social media. The Prime Minister made the comments during a visit to a vaccination centre in Northampton earlier. It's as he denies suggestions the NHS doesn't have the staff to cope with pressures brought on by the Omicron variant.
You've got people out there spouting complete nonsense about a vaccination. It's time that government, call them out on what they're doing. It is absolutely wrong, it's totally counterproductive, and the stuff they're putting out on social media is complete mumbo-jumbo.
A paramedic who died after a crash between an ambulance and a cement truck has been named. Alice Clark was killed in the collision on the A21 near Tunbridge in Kent last night. 3 members of South East Coast Ambulance Service were in the vehicle, with another paramedic suffering serious injuries. US President Joe Biden has called Donald Trump a threat to democracy on the first anniversary of the Capitol Hill insurrection. 4 people died on the 6th of January last year, and 1 Capitol police officer died the day after defending Congress. The president says Donald Trump is responsible as he spread a web of lies about the 2020 election.
He's done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest is more important than his country's interest, than America's interest. And because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution.
A commemorative coin has been unveiled by the Royal Mint ahead of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. Marking 70 years on the throne, it depicts the Queen on horseback and was designed by artist John Bergdahl. It's the first collectible 50p to celebrate a royal event. Well, you're right up to date. Now it's back to Dan Wootton Tonight.
Don't be so sure that we're immune from the vaccine tyranny sweeping across continental Europe and many so-called liberal Western democracies. First, it was New Zealand's Be Kind authoritarian Jacinda Ardern who boasted that the unvaccinated were second-class citizens in their own country.
So you basically said this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is, so yep.
Then Austria became the first country to make vaccination mandatory and enforceable by law, causing this widespread civil unrest. Next, we had Canadian PM Justin Trudeau, Mr. Blackface himself, saying that anyone who was unvaccinated was misogynist and racist.
Yes, we will get out of this pandemic by vaccination. We all know people who are a little bit hesitant. We will continue to try to convince them. But there are also people who are fiercely against vaccination. They are extremists who don't believe in science. They're often misogynists, also often racists. It's a small group that muscles in. And we have to make a choice in terms of leaders, in terms of the country. Do we tolerate these people?
This week, that nasty little oddball Emmanuel Macron said that he wants to, excuse my language here, quote, piss off the unvaccinated French population with fresh legislation to ban them from public venues. He told a newspaper, I'm generally opposed to the French being pissed off. I complain all the time about administrative blockages, but when it comes to the unvaccinated, I'm very keen to piss them off. So we're going to do it. The end. That's our strategy. And in the past 24 hours, Italy has become the latest illiberal democracy to force over 50s to be jabbed by law or face suspension from work from the middle of next month. When asked about the new Italian law on GBNews this morning, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps here said this.
We live in a free country and we're not going to be pinning people down and putting vaccinations into their arms, albeit that if you're not vaccinated, there are often additional hassles.
Additional hassles, that's right. The British booster police are coming for you, folks. The Times reports today that ministers on the all-powerful COVID-O committee have already had discussions over plans to deny Brits who refuse the booster entry to large venues and quarantine-free international travel. Health Secretary Sajid Javid is said to be a strong proponent of the plan to revive the UK's stalling booster programme. And a government source told the newspaper the Prime Minister is very open to it. Both Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance were supportive. This is about incentivising people to get their jabs. I'm sorry, to try and spin shutting folk out of parts of society for refusing a medical procedure that does come with side effects has nothing to do with incentivising. It's coercion, pure and simple. As I said yesterday, Boris Johnson was completely right to resist the pressure from the hysterics, Javid, Gove, Whitty, Vallance, Ferguson, and avoid shutting down the country any further over Christmas and the New Year. Now it's time for him to stand up to the constant illiberal measures that are determined to introduce, really, I think, in a bid to divide society between the jabbed and the unjabbed. As Professor Sir Andrew Pollard, head of the JCVI, bravely said this week, very soon boosters in this country should be reserved for the vulnerable anyway. The Prime Minister's focus must be on a path to normality. Leave the authoritarian approach to Ardern, Trudeau and Macron Boris. You've got to be better than them. To respond now, my superstar panel. The columnist, broadcaster, loose women's star, Carol McGiffin. The political commentator, Dominique Samuels, and the author and journalist, Amy Nicol. I mean, Carol McGiffin, this isn't incentivising folk, is it? If you're saying you can't live a normal life, that is vaccine coercion.
It sounds more like a threat to me, and I think the only reason that it hasn't happened here yet is because Boris just doesn't have the, excuse my language, the balls to do it. I think he knows right now he can't get away with it, but he's watching all these other leaders around the world that are all doing exactly the same thing.
And becoming popular.
Exactly. Dan Andrews, the guy in the Northern Territory has just locked everybody up again in Australia. I mean, it's just a horrible pattern. Macron, I mean, just don't get me started on that little tin pot mannequin tyrant. He is he's losing the plot. They're all losing the plot. They're out of control.
Because you've got your house in France, Carol.
Yep, that's right. And he's making life very difficult indeed. They've just passed another law today. It's still got to go through the Senate that says that their health pass is not going to be a health pass anymore. It's going to be a vaccine pass. So it's vaccine only to go into restaurants, to bars, to gyms.
So you can no longer even use a negative test?
No test, yeah, exactly.
But of course they are losing the plot because they're so frustrated and annoyed with the fact that we still aren't getting vaccinated. We've got 70% vaccination rate in this country. You know, and if you look at vaccine equity in the developing world, in Ethiopia, 1% of people are vaccinated. Do you not think that they would love...
But, Amy, isn't that
it's
the
like
point?
being offered something amazing and saying it's a threat.
Because
I can't understand that. How is being offered something that could save your life a threat?
My question
It's not going to save my life.
It could save your life.
What is your goal, though?
And my question...
In terms of...
My question would be...
Can you answer mine, though?
Yeah,
in terms of, like, threatening people to get vaccinated, in terms of being frustrated that not enough people are getting the jab, OK, what is the end goal in terms of forcing people to get it? What do you want the result to be?
I think force is never going to work, but I think people are so... they just don't know what to do because, like with all COVID, there's no neat answer. I've said before, it's like we're on this like little unicycle trying to balance everything all together. So people are just looking for ways...
You've got the head of the JCVI. He is Mr. Vaccine, right? This is not some anti-vaxxer. This bloke developed the Oxford AstraZeneca jab. And he is saying this week the UK has to move away from this idea that we can vaccinate the whole population, boost the whole population once every 4 to 6 months. And actually, Amy, we've got to focus on the vulnerable who are at significant risk from death from COVID. And by the way, that is people who are over 80 or who have very significant comorbidities.
I think something that is a lot scarier than everything that you're talking about is an unvaccinated population. And can you tell me... Dominic, you're laughing.
Amy, ridiculous.
What does it...
Sorry, it doesn't make sense.
What does an unvaccinated population look like?
An unvaccinated population looks
a
like
very healthy immune system.
A population that probably has accumulated herd immunity.
Yeah.
For people that are vulnerable or, you know, aren't more susceptible to serious illness or death, of course the vaccine should be an option to them. But to act like the vast majority of people won't experience asymptomatic or very mild disease and won't die in the vast, vast majority of cases, I think is just ignoring the reality.
I mean, Omicron is spreading like wildfire, and it means that we are picking up natural immunity. Do you understand how that works?
I do not understand anyone who can say that they want to turn down the opportunity to be vaccinated.
Yeah, but this is just privilege. This is just so simplistic, though, because we have so much evidence now. What is your goal for mass vaccination? Is it to reduce cases? Is that what it is? Because that's not worked anywhere, though.
That's not worked anywhere,
It's not worked anywhere. It's not worked in Israel. It's not worked in Australia. It's not worked in France. It's not worked anywhere. Cases are still rising.
Well, if you look at our death rate, how many people have died? 5 million people? If you look at something where there was no vaccines...
You know, that's not... 5 million people have died.
Have died overall? Globally.
Internationally.
Yeah,
internationally.
Yeah.
If we're talking
with COVID.
And look at something a previous health crisis, like say the last pandemic, the Spanish flu. 15 million people died because we didn't have a vaccine. How can you dispute the effectiveness of a vaccine?
How many people are in the world? Do you know how many people are in the world? 7.8 billion, right? So 5 million. Yeah, it's a lot of deaths, but relatively, no, it isn't. And whether you like it or not, this is still a virus with a 99+% survival rate, yeah. I mean,
it's about, and we're going to be talking about it later in the show, but it's about moving from being on a constant crisis footing to actually starting to say, we're coping with this now. We have essentially won, and we're not in the midst of a deadly
literally what vaccination does.
No, it's not. It's about reflecting reality, though, because regardless of whether or not you have a vaccine, which we do, that prevents serious illness or death for those that are vulnerable, regardless of that, you know, there is something called herd immunity. And
Omicron has been a blessing.
And Omicron, and I said this continuously, I've said it on numerous platforms, this may be a blessing in disguise because of how mild it is. And look, I was right. The data is represented.
But then you're completely not acknowledging long COVID, the possibility of that, or the people affected by that. But why are you laughing at that?
Because I hate people who raise long COVID. I feel like the people who raise long COVID are actually addicted to COVID. They want
we're just
COVID
looking
to
at the whole
continue, and I think it's quite odd. Look, I want to talk about Novak Djokovic. Carol McGiffin, Novak. I mean, what are they doing in Australia? How dare they treat him like this?
I really think it's, in a way, in a strange kind of way, I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Because I think it's really showing Australia up for what they are. Because There is no way that he could have got on that plane without some kind of authority, some kind of exemption or something.
But they panicked because it became politically unpopular.
They wanted to humiliate him, I think.
Because he humiliated them by saying, I'm off to Australia, happy days, I've got me exemption, and now they're trying to pay him back and locking him up in that quarantine hotel. I think is so disgusting, and I think all people around the world can see how wrong that is to do that to someone like that who's a visitor to their country, who's been given permission to go.
Do you feel that it's okay to shame Djokovic because...
I think it's absolutely right. I think he's humiliated himself by making the decision.
Do you actually think that?
I really do think that.
Because he's had COVID within the last
and it just
6 months,
shows that,
was the basis
like,
of his
misinformation and the idea that a vaccination could be anything other than positive doesn't
Amy,
have any boundaries and can affect anyone.
But Amy, this is misinformation, what you're saying, though, because
it is.
Various studies demonstrate that natural immunity is more long-lasting and more resilient than the vaccine if you've caught COVID before. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. You can see it in Israel.
And Amy, if you look at, let's talk about Djokovic. I mean, he's one of the world's finest specimens. He is incredibly fit, incredibly healthy. Sports people are told all the time not to put foreign medical products into their body. He has a moral position. Now, you can disagree with that moral position, but is it not his right to remain unvaccinated and to compete around the world
but we don't
if
know
he
that
doesn't
he
have
isn't
COVID?
yet.
I know.
We don't really know that
I know,
isn't.
and I
Because
don't
he's
like
not said,
talking
and
about
I
other
don't-
people's
exactly,
statuses.
and I don't
but
blame him.
at the same time, I think there is an assumption that that's how he got.
Well,
the exemption.
it's nobody else's business, and I'm just sick of.
But it absolutely is, isn't it? Isn't the whole point of vaccination that it is everyone else's business? Because if everyone is vaccinated, it stops the chance of variants. It stops the chance of it. When you are vaccinated, you shed the virus for less time. You're less transmissible for less time.
You shed the same amount of viral load as someone that's
for half the time.
And that's why
so you're
look at
protecting.
Waterford in Ireland that has a 99.7% vaccinated adult population. They've had some of the highest case rates in Ireland for quite a while now. So I'm not
certainly hasn't worked for Keir Starmer.
So that's half the time that they would have been.
It hasn't worked for anybody I know.
No, before all of their population got vaccinated, they didn't have such high case rates. It's only until afterwards. See, in Israel, fully vaccinated population, boosters, cases have shot up. Same in Australia. Clearly, it has no impact on cases.
It
has no impact on
I think
cases,
the
but
thing
it
that's
does
very
on the
weird
time
to
you can
me. I
shed
think the
the
thing that's
virus.
very weird to me is this term anti-vaxxer gets thrown around. No one would have called someone like you, who I presume didn't receive your flu vaccination every year up until now, because actually it didn't make sense for you to have a flu vaccination, whereas an 85-year-old who was sick, sure, it probably made sense. That doesn't make you an anti-vaxxer. It just makes you someone who weighs up personal risk.
Why don't you get the flu vaccine? It's my business to know.
I think you could do with boosting your antibodies.
I think you need the
tomorrow.
flu shot, Amy. Thanks.
Forever. Every 3 months, whenever they say, here's another vaccine, you've got to take it. You're just
Well,
happy to
Lawrence
take
Fox
that.
said on the show last night that Vanessa Fouts has said she wants to be boosted 27 times. And I say, do you know what? Good on her. If that's
Sounds
what you
lovely.
want, that's fine.
If someone wants to boost me 27 times, brilliant.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's your choice.
Are we still
do you think that's healthy to be boosted?
I don't understand this logic.
27
Like you have a meal, you get hungry, you eat another one. Like it's not.
But Dominique,
These are vaccines, though. It's not a cookie.
But Dominique,
Like, what's wrong with you?
it's someone's choice, though, right? In the same way that it's someone's choice to have a boob job or
of course.
do whatever they want with their body.
You can be a hypochondriac and have no sense of reason or logic, and I can choose to say you're a hypochondriac and I'm not going to listen to you.
But it only works one way. That's the other problem. The people who are pro-vax maniacs, they can't accept that some people might not want to have it.
2 years
That's why
ago-
they label them anti-vaxxers.
2 years ago,
And they're
they
not.
probably-
I don't care if everybody wants to get
No,
vaxxed.
but what the issue is, you use that label and you shut down discussion. And we need to have the discussion because, for God's sake, Professor Sir Andrew Pollard, who is the head of the vaccine committee in this country, is saying we've got to stop getting boosted.
Yep.
We need to have the conversation. And we're having it tonight. So Amy Nicole, Dominic Samuels, Carol McGiffin, thank you. Told you it was going to be feisty. They're here for the whole show. Coming up, though, what's next in the Ghislaine Maxwell saga, and could a retrial be on the cards? US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly breaks down the trial that the whole world was watching at 9:30. But next, is the Pope right that it's selfish to have pets rather than children? Right Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden and theatre legend Christopher Biggins are let off the leash in the clash. As ever, though, I want to know what you think on this one. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me using the handle @gbnews. We've got a poll running there too, and I'll reveal your verdict after the break.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's another cold one out there tonight. Not quite as frosty as last night, but still the potential for things to be problematic in the morning. Some heavy snow showers in places and likely to be quite icy as well. We've seen this set of weather fronts crossing the country, bringing rain and some hill snow. Behind it, the isobars pinching together, so a blustery night, and particularly across Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, showers coming in here, Northwest England too. A mixture with those showers with hail, sleet, but also some snow, mostly over hills, but even at low levels, you may wake up to a centimetre or two. So we do have a yellow warning in place. Further south and east, most places dry and clear and cold, but not quite as cold as last night. Could be quite icy then first thing in the morning, with further snow showers coming into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and Northwest England. A few wintry showers elsewhere, and then we're looking at a zone of cloudier and wetter weather coming into South Wales and Southwest England around the middle of the day. That'll be mostly rain, but again, some snow is possible over the hills. Much of the east dry and bright during the course of tomorrow, but feeling cold, especially with a fairly brisk breeze. Still quite a few showers across the south for a time during Friday evening, but then turning largely dry, clear and cold with a more extensive frost before. Out west, more cloud and rain comes marching in for the weekend. That will again bring some snow over the hills of northern England for a time on Saturday morning and across parts of Scotland too. But turning back to rain as we see milder air moving in with this weather system, bringing a fairly soggy Saturday. Western parts turning drier and brighter in the afternoon, but even then there will be showers coming along. Turning a bit milder on Saturday, but obviously not feeling all that pleasant with the breeze and the rain. That scoots away, and Sunday compared to Saturday looking much drier and much brighter, with the winds a touch lighter as well. Goodbye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's time now for The Clash. During one of his general audiences yesterday, Pope Francis hit out at what he calls selfish parents who have pets instead of children. Speaking on parenthood, Francis lamented that pets sometimes take the place of children in society.
The other day, I spoke about the demographic winter affecting our world today. Maybe some people don't wish to have children, or maybe just one or two. And many couples don't have children, perhaps because they do not wish to, or they only have one and not more. But they might have two domestic animals, two dogs or cats. This is quite a contrast. And this giving up on being a mother or father can take some of our humanity away from us.
Now, the Pope went on to say that couples should have more children to address the demographic winter in a large portion of the West, and called on couples who can't have children to be open to adoption. But his comments did not go down well with everyone online, with many people calling out the Pope for his hypocrisy because of his chosen lifestyle to remain childish by entering the Catholic Church as a priest. So what do you think? Is the Pope right that it's selfish to have pets rather than children? Dan at gbnews.uk, or vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter. But to help you make your mind up, let's debate this now with the actor and legendary TV presenter Christopher Biggins and the former chaplain to the Queen, Right Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Biggins, Happy New Year. Why's the Pope got this one wrong, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's very selfish of him to say what he said, because, in fact, do we know if the Pope has any animals in the Vatican? Do we know that he has a couple of dogs at his feet as we speak now?
Apparently
Is he stroking his pussy?
Apparently he doesn't, actually.
He doesn't?
No.
Well, there you are. So that's hearsay. But I think, I think certain people, yes, are very good parents, as we know. I mean, I know a lot of wonderful parents. I've got a wonderful amount of godchildren. I'm selfish and I wouldn't want to be a parent myself because I like my life too much. Whereas I think that I also don't want a pet because I think selfishly that pets have to be looked after as much as children. But if I had a big house in the country, I would have a dog or two because I think they're wonderful companions. A lot of people who can't have children find solace in having a pet. And I think a pet is a wonderful thing. Oh, look at those adorable things. I mean, you couldn't say no to one of those, could you? Let's bring the Pope and get him to watch this. I mean, I think he would look, they're adorable. No, I think it's a selfish remark that he's made. And of course, he can't have children. And which is something which is very interesting. I mean, he's talking about other people and he's not thinking about himself.
Dr. Ashenden, isn't the point that Biggins makes that's most important is the fact that people who maybe would not be good parents but are Catholic might now feel pressure to have children, and there's nothing worse than someone bringing little ones into the world that they don't really want, right?
I'd be rather pleased if I thought the Pope had that much influence. That would be great, actually. But I think the issue is not. I'm sorry he said selfish, because I think that muddies the waters. I think he's quite right to say that we have a problem about families. He's right to say that psychologically we lose something of our humanity. We're supposed to grow up in stages. Developmental psychology tells us about adolescence, adulthood, parenthood, grandparenthood. This is a natural way that human beings grow and mature in the right kind of way. We've got a problem in our culture because we've devalued motherhood, we've frightened ourselves of apocalyptic stories, and there's a level of anxiety about the way in which we live our lives. And the problem is, selfish or not, it's going to leave us with a demographic problem. So I'm very glad he's at least raised the issue, because I think there are things that we could do to try and give families a better profile in our life in order to make a better, more rounded society.
What about the families that suffer from with their children, who suffer badly in abusing them, of really not looking after them, of making them, we see program after program, news item after news item of parents absolutely using children as slaves. They're not at all looking after the children. I suppose you could say they would do the same with animals, perhaps. But I mean, not everybody is a good parent, Dr. Gavin. I'm sure you'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
No, I do. And I agree with what you said. It's just, with all due respect, it's not a winning argument, only because there are all kinds of things we do that are wholesome and splendid, and they've all got aberrations and perversions and failures. And if we simply say wherever there's a failure, we can't aim for the best, then we wouldn't do anything. So you're quite right. The families can be quite difficult and dangerous places, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that that's how we're designed in if you're an atheist, even in evolutionary terms, or psychologically, or if you're simply a statistician and you know the pensions need to be paid. So he's right. We've got a problem, though I don't think we address it by calling people selfish. I think we try and give it some more profound thought in terms of the way we run our culture.
But
do you think
you've missed out on anything, a slice of humanity, because you're not a father?
Absolutely not. I mean, I surround myself with children. I have godchildren galore. I do pantomime where I'm surrounded by children. I love children, and children are wonderful. And I love my niece's child. And, it's wonderful to see families. But I don't think it's necessarily necessary for me to be chastised in the name of God for not having a child.
Oh, I completely agree with that. That's so right. And you're quite right when you say not everyone's cut out to be a good parent, and they probably shouldn't be. But the Pope wasn't calling for a new absolute rule to force everyone to have 2.1 children. I think what he was pointing out was that we've gone too far one way, and we probably ought to look at moving back the other way. And I think I mean, it's unarguably correct, demographically, psychologically, financially, spiritually, all kinds of ways. We've gone too far, anti-family, anti-children.
Do you think that's true, Biggins?
Sorry?
Do you think that's true, that as a society, we don't celebrate the family in a way that we once did?
Oh, I think we do. I think in the troubled COVID days that we've been through, I think we celebrate family even more. I mean, I feel really sorry for people in homes who can't be visited by their families. I think there's been an awful lot of that, and an awful lot of people dying, of course, through COVID. I mean, I think the family is as strong as ever. Certainly, I don't have my mother and father, which I regret terribly because they both passed away. But I get solace from other people's families. I mean, families are wonderful, and I adore my friends and my families and everything about it. I mean, it's wonderful. But I wonder, Dr. Gavin, are you criticising me for not having a child? I mean, are you taking that on that role?
No, I almost rather you were the Pope and you'd said what you'd said in the Vatican, because I think you just made a wonderful plea for families. And you did it so beautifully and so attractively. No, I just think that, I don't agree with you that families are in as good a shape as they always have been. Single parents can't, there's too much pressure on them. Women not being allowed to be mothers because they have to be successful in the marketplace. The fear of having children because we're threatened with ecological apocalypse every day. I think families have a very hard time, and we need to do more than we can for those people who want to have families, who feel called and able to do it. And we've lost the whole extended family. And actually, you can make a very good case for saying that if you want to have decent, happy, healthy families, you have to have an extended family as a buttress to do it. I think we're really doing it.
Fascinating debate. Thank you for having it. That is the Right Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden, and before that, the theatre legend Christopher Biggins. Thank you both. So who do you agree with? Keith says, not everybody wants children. I would rather have pets in my life. They're loving, loyal and love you for who you are. Maz on Twitter says, people have the right to live their lives as they see fit. If they don't want kids, that's up to them. Maybe they don't have the financial security to have children, which makes them sensible in my eyes. Or with the Pope, rather they bring innocence into poverty from the outset. Laura on Twitter says, my pets are my children, as we've not been lucky enough to conceive. Shows how outdated the views of the Pope are, as it's not always as simple as having a child. His views are selfish. And your verdict now in, and just 15% of you agree with the Pope's comments. that having pets rather than children is selfish, while 85% of you disagree and believe it isn't selfish. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your feedback today. Now, coming up, is Jacob Rees-Mogg the only true Conservative left? GB News star Mark Dolan is tonight's outsider. He'll be pondering that at 9:45. But next, is the sexual abuse ordeal of one of Ghislaine Maxwell's traffickers enough to turn her guilty verdict on its head? Megyn Kelly, US superstar journalist and host of The Megyn Kelly Show, breaks that down next.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Mark Dolan and former Trump advisor Jason Miller on the way. But first, it's Megyn Kelly time, the star US journalist, host of The Megyn Kelly Show, which you can find on SiriusXM, YouTube, and as a podcast. And now a rogue juror's admission that he was a victim of sexual abuse has thrown Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking conviction into doubt. Scotty David has lawyered up as the potentially disastrous consequences from the revelations he made to Mail Online became clear. Here's some of what he had to say.
We don't have proof that she may have participated in some of the sex acts. We have testimony that she did, and it took a lot of convincing for some of the jurors to come around to that.
The US State Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, called for the court to conduct an inquiry in a letter filed in federal court Wednesday morning. But Maxwell's team have demanded an immediate mistrial. Megyn, Happy New Year to you. Great to see you. And what a story to kick off with. How likely is Maxwell to get a new trial after this bombshell interview from the juror?
It's a great piece of news for her. I mean, great. They're always looking for a reason to throw out the verdict after it comes in as guilty, you know, when you're a defense attorney. But this one is a gift from above. She's got a very good shot. I mean, I would put it at greater than 50% of getting this verdict thrown out. And it looks like, we don't have all the facts, I should say that, but what it looks like right now is that that juror did not admit on his juror questionnaire that he had been the victim of a sexual assault. And then he went into the jury deliberation room and used his own alleged assault to help persuade the other jurors to get past their doubts about the memories of the Maxwell accusers. They were saying, we're not sure, their stories didn't totally match up, you know, it's been a long time, the memories weren't very good. And he persuaded them saying, I am the victim of a sexual assault, and I can tell you the memory may not be perfect for the details, but you know when it happened. Okay, not okay if he didn't disclose that on the juror questionnaire, because the judge was cross-examining personally. She was voir diring or questioning the would-be jurors over those disclosures on the juror questionnaires one by one, and specifically assured defense counsel that had concerns, don't worry, if there's somebody lying, we're going to ferret them out. Well, that's not what happened. And not only was it this juror, it may have happened with a second juror. So if I had to put money on it right now, Dan, I would say this verdict is probably going to get thrown out, and Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be retried.
So, Megan, a victim of a crime shouldn't be on a jury when they're trying that particular crime. Is that how the law works there?
They can, but you have to.
They can, but they have to admit it first. Okay.
The defense has a right to cross-examine you, and in this case, the judge was doing the questioning. And if you look back, it was all done anonymously. But if you look back, the judge, with respect to several potential jurors, said, "Okay, you've disclosed here in question number X that you were the victim of a sexual assault or of sexual abuse," and then asked follow-up questions, including, "Do you think you could be fair? Do you think you could find, someone accused not guilty?" That kind of thing. None of that happened with Scotty David, and none of it apparently happened with this second juror. So while it's normally okay to use your own personal experiences in the jury room, it's a different story if you haven't disclosed it. And in particular, if you haven't disclosed it intentionally, though I don't think intent will matter.
Got it. Megan, will the sentencing still take place, though? And is Ghislaine Maxwell going down for life?
Well, right now, the judge has declined to stay the post-verdict proceedings while this gets briefed out. And so it will get briefed over the next few weeks. I think she set briefing deadlines in January. So we should know rather soon. And I should say judges are always very reluctant to throw out a verdict, but we'll see. And even if she does let the verdict stand, this is a great grounds for appeal for the defense. So right now they are still going forward towards sentencing. And the reality is she's facing a potential of 65 years in prison. She'll probably get sentenced to between 20 and 25, which as a 60-year-old woman is effectively a life sentence.
What do you think her guilty verdict means for Prince Andrew, Megan? Because, of course, this civil case with Virginia Giuffre is still rumbling along, and that's also in court this week.
So unlike a lot of the people out there, I don't think her guilty verdict says much, if anything, about what's going to happen for Prince Andrew. But he's having some developments in his own case separate and apart from Ghislaine. On the question of Ghislaine, though, I don't think she's going to talk. If people are wondering, is she going to roll on Prince Andrew and give up the story? I don't think so. She hasn't done that so far. The feds didn't seem interested in cutting a deal with her if she were willing to do that. And I think Ghislaine very well understands that if she were to start rolling on all the Epstein connections, it could have dire consequences for her in jail or elsewhere. And I just don't see that happening. However, you probably know that yesterday they unsealed this settlement agreement between Virginia Roberts Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, dated 2009. And in it, he gave her $500,000 to make her go away. And he also tried to make that agreement inure to the benefit of unnamed third parties, saying, not only can't you sue me again, you can't sue a bunch of other third parties who you claim may have helped me in my behavior or may have done independent wrongs to you. And there's some reference to royalty in this agreement. And so Prince Andrew is trying to say, that's me. You can't sue me. I'm covered by that. At the hearing that happened this week, the judge did not seem enamored with that argument at all. I don't think the argument's going to help Prince Andrew. And if the judge denies this motion by Prince Andrew to dismiss her case, he's finding himself in discovery, which means you have to turn over documents. You have to sit for a deposition. He's going to have to. And I don't see him doing that. I think he'll find some way to settle this. And I think it'll be disgraceful to him, even more so than it's been. You tell me, you know better than I, but I think the British people will be harsh judges of him if he settles this case and if the Queen has got to use some of her own duchy money to make Virginia Roberts' lawsuit go away.
Yeah, mummy's money to pay off the young woman that I didn't have sex with. It doesn't look good. At the same time, Meghan, getting off because my pedo best mate happened to pay the victim $500,000 doesn't look good either, does it? So I feel the man is damned either way.
That's like Prince Andrew's like, that was me. That was me he was thinking about. That doesn't really help him in terms of the PR war.
No, I mean, it might help legally, but PR-wise, it's a disaster.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the British public is starting to see that at a minimum, he took massive risks with his reputation and with whom he surrounded himself. And frankly, it went beyond Prince Andrew because Ghislaine Maxwell was at the palace several times too. And she was, as it turns out, a very seedy character associating with a very problematic man. But, you know, Prince Andrew, I don't see himself digging himself out of this, even though we've talked before about Virginia Roberts and her credibility problems. He can't let it get to the point where it comes down to a he said, she said in court, because that means he'll have been under oath. All of his weird testimonials about not sweating are going to come back to haunt him. All the pictures of him coming out of the nightclubs while sweating, like all those weird things are going to come out, and he'll take an even bigger PR hit than he's already taken. So you have to think the move at this point, if his motion to dismiss is denied, is to settle it, to say it's the Platinum Jubilee. You know, in the best interests of my mom, I'm going to make this go away, even though I deny all of this.
I can see that happening, but he doesn't have the money himself, so doing it with mummy's money is certainly very messy at this stage in the Queen's life. But Megyn Kelly, fascinating analysis as ever, the best in the business, so appreciate it. Happy New Year to you, Megyn, and of course Megyn Kelly, the host of The Megyn Kelly Show. Coming up, how do we tackle Twitter's chilling censorship of free-thinking conservatives who tweet uncomfortable truths at times? Former Trump senior advisor turned tech pioneer Jason Miller is on a mission to erase cancel culture from social media for good, and he'll be here at 10:20. But next, where are the Tories willing to take a stand for conservative with a small c values? GBNews star Mark Dolan debates whether our government is becoming more like Labour light. The Outsider, straight after the break.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's another cold one out there tonight. Not quite as frosty as last night, but still the potential for things to be problematic in the morning. Some heavy snow showers in places and likely to be quite icy as well. We've seen this set of weather fronts crossing the country, bringing rain and some hill snow. Behind it, the isobars pinching together, so a blustery night, and particularly across Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, showers coming in here, northwest England too. A mixture with those showers with hail, sleet, but also some snow, mostly over hills, but even at low levels, you may wake up to a centimetre or two. So we do have a yellow warning in place. Further south and east, most places dry and clear and cold, but not quite as cold as last night. Could be quite icy then first thing in the morning, with further snow showers coming into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and northwest England. A few wintry showers elsewhere, and then we're looking at a zone of cloudier and wetter weather coming into South Wales and southwest England around the middle of the day. That'll be mostly rain, but again, some snow is possible over the hills. Much of the east dry and bright during the course of tomorrow, but feeling cold, especially with a fairly brisk breeze. Still quite a few showers across the south for a time during Friday evening, but then turning largely dry, clear and cold with a more extensive frost before. Out west, more cloud and rain comes marching in for the weekend. That will again bring some snow over the hills of northern England for a time on Saturday morning and across parts of Scotland too. But turning back to rain as we see milder air moving in with this weather system, bringing a fairly soggy Saturday. Western parts turning drier and brighter in the afternoon, but even then there will be showers coming along. Turning a bit milder on Saturday, but obviously not feeling all that pleasant with the breeze and the rain. That scoots away, and Sunday compared to Saturday looking much drier and much brighter with the winds a touch lighter as well. Goodbye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Tonya Buxton and former Trump advisor Jason Miller on the way. But first, Mark Dolan is tonight's outsider. How can Boris Johnson not see when his allies are trying to save him from himself? Earlier this week, the PM ruled out going through with one of his best Brexit promises to scrap VAT from electricity bills. Something that was impossible, remember, as an EU member. He and Chancellor Rishi Sunak dismissed a fantastic suggestion by Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of the few senior ministers prepared to stand up for small c Conservative principles, of taking the pressure off Brits by scrapping the £12 billion national insurance hike and culling the lazy civil servants who have been collecting fat paychecks for working at home in their underwear in front of loose women. As I write in my new Mail Online column today, there it is, the big state, Boris Tories, New Labour with a shaggy dog hairstyle, seem to want to continue on an unfathomable march towards becoming the high-tax party. Boris's biggest weakness as PM is that he expects the British public to be that magic money tree dipping into taxpayers' pockets whenever the going gets tough. For him to have any sort of post-COVID bounce back, that approach must end. Mark Dolan is with me now on this. It's just so terrible, isn't it, Mark? Happy New Year, by the way. Great to have you back. Hope you had an amazing holiday.
New Year. Thank you. It's a high-tax New Year, isn't it? And I loved your article in the Mail Online. I would urge everybody to give it a read because it spells out in excruciating detail the level to which we are about to be taxed, the highest burden of tax on the British public since the 1950s. Now, in the course of this pandemic, Dan, I have lamented the enormous amounts of borrowing that we have taken on, partly because it saddles future generations with debts. They'll have to pay it back. And also it curtails their ability to actually handle future crises because the cupboard will be bare. It also exposes all of us to rises in interest rates, which are inevitable. So that's a concern. But the other thing that's bothered me about our amazing credit rating and the ability to print money like it's going out of fashion is that it has funded this scientific experiment of lockdown. Now, lockdown might have been the right thing to do. It might not have been. Opinions divided. I know what you think about it, Dan. I think we're agreed on that. History, of course, will have the answer. But, you know, we have had this big experiment. It has been funded on the never, never. And it's not just the borrowing. A deep concern is taxation, particularly because it impacts, as you pointed out in your Mail Online article, the poorest in our society. The ONS have statistics suggesting that it's an effective tax rise of a fifth for some of the poorest families.
Yeah.
And that's before we get to the cost of energy, which is quite shocking.
And Mark, I mean, this is really serious because some of these folk are not going to be able to afford to either heat their home or buy food. I mean, it's the whole heat or eat thing, which Martin Lewis was talking about earlier in the week. I mean, that cannot happen under a Tory government.
Well, no, that's right. The energy regulator, Ofgem, are about to publish a new energy cap. And it's feared that the average household bills for energy will go from about £1,200 a year, which is already massive, to £2,000. This is not sustainable. You mentioned a possible cut in VAT on energy prices, which I think we should look at. We should look at alternative energy sources as well. Why did we rule out fracking all those years ago? The woke mob put paid to that one. It would have given us fantastic energy independence. It's a clean fuel, and it's for free.
And I agree with you on all of that. So why, when Jacob Rees-Mogg stands up to Boris and Rishi in the cabinet meeting and says, look, we simply cannot go through with this tax rise, why do they just dismiss him? Because let me tell you, Mark, Jacob Rees-Mogg represents the Tory backbenchers and the Tory members.
Yes. As does Lord Frost, who I think is a great loss to the cabinet as Brexit minister. And one of the things that he pointed out in his resignation letter was the issue of the government's economic policy. And, you know, it wasn't just Brexit, the Northern Ireland Protocol and liberties, but economic policy, because we don't have a Conservative Prime Minister. Everything Boris does is now underwritten by his deputy, Keir Starmer, and it seems that there's no end to this. You know, and you just can't tax yourself to prosperity, Dan, and we've got to recover. And that's what I'm really concerned about as well, is this massive tax burden. Not only is it deeply unfair on some of the poorest in our society, it will crush the economic recovery, and we've just got to get back to basics.
Exactly. And
you know,
cut taxes, get people back into work. Exactly. Cut taxes, get people back into work. Then we're going to have a boosted economy. That's the way to deal with this. But Mark, look, I just want to finish off by giving a little bit of a plug, because you're back tomorrow night on GB News right at 9 o'clock. But are you allowed to say yet what's happening a little bit later in the night? Because there's a twist, right? Can you reveal the news, Mark?
Well, I mean, it's obviously very, very exciting. We've got a packed 3 shows, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. But Dan, what are you hinting at? You've got me salivating.
I'm just hinting that you might be taking on maybe another job.
Well, I'm very glad you mentioned it. And look, I'm far too bashful. But yes, you know that Headliners has become such a hit late night franchise on GB News. And I'm very excited because I'll be doing my regular show 9 till 11 with the big guests, big stories and big opinions. But I'll be looking after Headliners as its lead presenter every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And I cannot wait. Big laughs and big stories. So do tune in from 11.
Oh my God, Mark, brilliant. I'm very excited about that. Sorry for forcing you into revealing it. But you know I want the scoop here, Mark. I want the scoop here.
Always the exclusive.
And Mark Dolan back 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. with Mark Dolan tonight, and then 11 p.m. till midnight with Headliners Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You heard it here first. Mark, thank you. I will be tuning in all weekend. Don't you worry about that. It's 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Still to come. Is it okay to declare the coronavirus pandemic over, as The Spectator's Douglas Murray has done today? The author and broadcaster Tonya Buxton reveals all on that in Uncancelled. How do we tackle Twitter's chilling censorship of free-thinking conservatives? Former Trump senior advisor turned tech pioneer Jason Miller is on a mission to save free debate on social media, and he'll be here at 10:20. As Sturgeon starts snapping at journos and the party is accused of using dodgy data, is the SNP coronavirus strategy unravelling? Plus, after it was revealed female patients are more likely to die under a male surgeon's knife, should women only be operated on by other women? And as a Love Island star turned successful businesswoman is branded Margaret Thatcher in fake tan for saying this
raised in different ways and we do have different financial situations, but I think if you want something enough, you can achieve it, and it just depends to what lengths you want to go to get where you want to be in the future. And
I'm going to be asking, why is it wrong to be aspirational like Molly May in modern-day Britain? All of those topics coming up in the Media Buzz with my superstar panel, Carol McGiffin, Dominique Samuels and Amy Nicole. But don't go anywhere, because next we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and then remember, before the end of the hour, we're going to reveal the last Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the week. You don't want to go anywhere. First, though, the news at 10 with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Here are the headlines. The government has defended plans to increase national insurance. It's after Commons leader Jacob Rees-Mogg asked the move to be scrapped to help families cope with the cost of living. From April, it's set to rise by 1.25%. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says it's a historic decision to try and save the NHS and social care.
I think it's absolutely right that we do two things. One, clear up the very big backlog of operations and procedures that haven't been able to take place because the NHS has been so remarkably dealing with coronavirus. And two, make sure that we deal with the long-term problem of social care.
Boris Johnson has hit out at what he's calling mumbo-jumbo of anti-vaccination campaigns on social media. The Prime Minister made the comments during a visit to a vaccination centre in Northampton earlier. It comes as he denies suggestions the NHS doesn't have the staff to cope with pressures brought on by the Omicron variant.
You've got people out there spouting complete nonsense about a vaccination. It's time that government, call them out on what they're doing. It is absolutely wrong, it's totally counterproductive, and the stuff they're putting out on social media is complete mumbo-jumbo.
US President Joe Biden has called Donald Trump a threat to democracy on the first anniversary of the Capitol Hill insurrection. 4 people died on the 6th of January last year, and 1 Capitol police officer died the day after, defending Congress. The president says Donald Trump is responsible as he spread a web of lies about the 2020 election.
He's done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest is more important than his country's interest, than America's interest. And because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution.
It's come to light that a British warship and Russian submarine have crashed in what is believed to be the first collision between the two nations since the Cold War. In what the Royal Navy has described as a 1,000,000-to-1 chance event, a sonar cable from HMS Northumberland crashed into the Russian vessel it was sent to track down 200 miles north of Scotland in the North Atlantic. The Ministry of Defence say there's no suggestion the incident, which took place in late 2020, was deliberate. Well, those are the headlines. Now, though, it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. And let's kick off as ever with the very first look at the front pages hot off the press. And the Metro, good headline this, Prisoner Cell Jock H. Remember that show? You might be too young, but I certainly do. Following the Australian Border Force's refusal to let Novak into the country, the world #1 tennis player is being kept in a quarantine hotel with no change of clothes after he had his visa cancelled. He is to appeal the decision before court on Monday at the earliest. The Daily Telegraph reports, meanwhile, and this is what Mark Dolan and I were discussing just before the news, actually, more than 1 million people are set to be pulled into a higher rate of tax by 2026, as economists predict the country will face the biggest cost of living crisis for a generation. Utter madness, utter madness. Jacob Rees-Mogg was absolutely right. Let me bring my superstar panel back now. The columnist and broadcaster Carol McGiffin, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and journalist Amy Nicole. I'm so glad government press briefings are recorded because they expose the sheer hypocrisy of some politicians, especially, you guessed it,
scheming Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland. As I mentioned yesterday, the First Minister is under pressure to apologise for her disgusting response to Scottish Daily Mail political editor Mike Blackley, who back in December dared to question her isolation policy after hysterically defending the need to lock people up for the maximum amount of time, despite only one Omicron patient being in intensive care in Scotland since the start of the wave. She then made a huge U-turn yesterday and cut the isolation period from 10 days to 7. Take a look at this. I mean, I've got to warn you, it might give you whiplash.
Would you cut the requirement for self-isolation?
Yeah, that would really help, because that would spread infection even further, and that would be not doing any favours to businesses. I don't know if you've listened to a single word I said.
There will now be an option to end isolation after 7 days.
Nicola Sturgeon doing everything Boris Johnson does 2 weeks later. This scandal comes as the SNP have been found out for allegedly spinning Office for National Statistics data to suit their agenda. Speaking on the BBC, Deputy First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, suggested ONS figures showing that 1 in 40 Scots were infected compared to only 1 in 25 in England were the strongest evidence the measures that Scotland had taken are protecting the population from COVID. However, here's the thing. Those figures he quoted were from before the Scottish Government imposed additional restrictions. So he's been reported to the Statistics Authority. Yet Sturgeon has defended her deputy, of course, arguing he used the most up-to-date data available at the time. Dominique Samuels, I honestly feel like we are watching the SNP's COVID policies unravel in real time. And I have to say, I'm here for it.
I'm definitely here for it as well, because what we see is the COVID consensus on restrictions, on, ruining people's lives. And I'm going to say that. You just are. The consensus on that is completely unravelling, because what they've demonstrated is these measures do not work. They just don't work. Scotland has seen the highest rise in cases in the whole country, higher than England. They saw their cases rise by 94%, and that's with all these additional restrictions. So they clearly don't work. And the thing about Nicola Sturgeon is she tried to embarrass Boris Johnson by mirroring countries like France and Italy and all those countries, trying to follow their model because she just loves the EU. And what she found, that those measures do not work and they were completely premature. And what Boris Johnson has done is he's redeemed himself. He's made himself look like the reasonable one. And Nicola Sturgeon won't like that, because she's used to getting a very easy ride from the media. And that's why she snapped at that journalist, because she hates being held to account. She hates being asked.
I mean, Nicole, you're one of these Sturgeon groupies, aren't you?
It's just incorrect to say that she gets an easy time from the media. She probably gets the harshest time out of...
Only on this show, love. Only on this show. Have you watched how the BBC talk about Sturgeon? Have you watched Nicola Sturgeon be interviewed by Robert Peston or anyone on ITV? They love the woman. They treat her actually like a queen rather than an elected politician.
Treat her like a clown a little bit, don't they? No.
Well, why do you like her? Why do you like her so much?
With this one, we talk about this specific example. I'm absolutely loving Sassy Sturgeon. And I looked at it. This was on December the 17th that this took place. OK, she now revised the restrictions on January the 7th. That's quite a big amount of time. If you look at any one with the policies that are going on at the moment, it's constantly chopping and changing. I also looked at the other questions she'd been asked that day, and they were all the same question. So she got frustrated. She's human.
She said that the measure that she then eventually announced would cause more infections and actually wouldn't help businesses. So
and now she's just gone and done it.
Does she believe in her own policy or not?
Carol, do you think Nicola Sturgeon is out of control?
Oh, God, yeah. I think she looks at the other leaders around the world that are kind of, top of the leaderboard. They're above her in the leaderboard of, tyrants, wannabe tyrants. And I think she thinks I can do that. And the way she talked to that journalist, I think, just summed it up. The contempt and don't you dare question me. Don't you ask anything. OK, I might do it in a couple of weeks. But this sums up the way these politicians are. They don't care. No. They really don't care. They know exactly what they're doing and they don't care. They're going to do it anyway.
But also...
And I think that really showed her up for that, actually.
I agree. But also, on the other hand, I think she got so uncomfortable because throughout this whole COVID era, politicians have been used to getting a particularly easy ride from journalists. They don't ask what is the justification for these measures. They're asked, why won't you do it harder, faster, stronger, please, more, more, more. And then when she got a bit of a critical question from a journalist, she erupted, she unravelled, and I'm glad.
But it wasn't even that bad, the question. It was just a mild suggestion, like, how about you do this because it's not reasonable?
No, the response was really not that bad. Let's think back. Do you remember when Donald Trump used to hold press conferences and literally have journalists removed and, like, this is just...
Oh, I miss those days.
There's one where he said, I'm president and you're not.
That journalist got the time and they got their answer.
To be honest, I'd love to be able to say, Laura Koonsberg, out.
Get out.
Beth Rigby, out. Crap question, never come back. Hugh Pym, you're banned for good.
I'd love that. You can have these two as bouncers to drag them out. Yeah.
Now, in the latest ridiculous online pile-on, social media star Molly May Hague has been dubbed Margaret Thatcher with a fake tan. The 22-year-old, who shot to fame on Love Island in 2019 and is dating Tommy Fury, the brother of boxing legend Tyson Fury, has been slammed for seemingly tone-deaf comments she made about wealth inequality during a recent interview. A clip of her on the YouTube series The Diary of a CEO have resurfaced and gone viral today. I don't think she's done anything wrong, but have a look at what she said.
I've spoken about that before in the past. I have been slammed a little bit with people saying, you know, like, it's easy for you to say that, you know, you've grown up and you've not grown up in poverty, you've not grown up, you know, with major money struggles. So for you to sit there and say that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, it's not correct. And I'm like, but technically what I'm saying is correct. We do. So I understand that obviously we all have different backgrounds and we're all raised in different ways and we do have different financial situations. But I think if you want something enough, you can achieve it. And it just depends to what lengths you want to go to get where you want to be in the future. And I'll go to any lengths. Like, I've worked my absolute off to get where I am now. A lot of people don't think that and believe that, but it's true. I've worked so hard.
Go, girl, I love that. But predictably today, many took to social media to air their grievances, pointing out that she went on one of the UK's biggest reality shows and had endorsement deals waiting for her. But Karen McGiffin, I cannot understand the criticism of Molly May. I think we need to be an aspirational society, and they're criticising her for saying she's worked hard and achieved her millions through that hard work.
I couldn't find anything wrong in what she was saying. She was perfectly reasonable in that if you want something, go and get it. But I think the people that she's appealing to, unfortunately, are those people who think the world owes them a living and they don't really want to go out there and work for it. So anybody who sits there and says to anyone, oh, it's all right for you, you know, that's just such a get out. It's not good enough. You have to get up and do it yourself. You know, a lot of people have come from poverty and they've done really well in life. You know, many people. It's just if you want to, you can do it. And that's all she's saying.
No, Amy Nicole, you say she's arrogant. Why?
I don't think she's necessarily arrogant. I think she's massively naive. And I think she speaks how a lot of privileged 22-year-olds would speak with this illusion. She's promoting the myth of social mobility.
You said Molly May is arrogant because she sees everyone as equal and doesn't understand that everyone is on a different income.
Definitely didn't say the word arrogant, but I think it's massively naive to think that we have a good expectation of social mobility in this country. If you look at the Forbes 30 under 30, 99% of those people got investments from either their parents or other sources. Wealth creates wealth. If there's a social ladder, if you're on the top of the ladder or the bottom of the ladder, it's quite unlikely that you're going to move position. And that's just a fact.
But she's
I think no, she hasn't at all. She hasn't. She thinks if you work hard, you will do well. Does she think that the people that are paid? I'd really like to make
which mentality would you prefer? Would you prefer there's no reason to get out of bed in the morning because you've had a bit of a difficult start in life, so there's no point trying?
That's not what I'm saying
It is what you're implying.
No, I'm saying...
would you prefer the mentality of, if I work hard, go after my dreams, no matter what, I will succeed? I know which mentality...
I think you want to be a bit realistic.
And do you know what? When people say that in the UK you can only succeed if you come from wealth or you come from the right background.
not true.
I don't agree, because when I came to this country, I did not know a soul, not one single human being. I did not have one connection to get me into this industry. Now, is it easier for people whose parents are very rich and famous journalists?
Yes,
of course it is.
completely.
Of course it is. But that's what life's about, working hard. And just because Molly May came from a decent background, I'm sorry, I see a lot of rich kids do absolutely bugger all.
Can I just say, like, I'm actually a massive fan of Molly, so I know quite a bit about her. She had followers before she went on Love Island, and she's been the most successful person ever to go on Love Island. The amount of people that have gone on there, come off and never been heard of again, she has done something that no other Love
Molly
Island
May
has done.
is currently creative director of Pretty Little Thing.
What other Love
People that
Islanders managed to
work
do
in a
that?
Pretty Little Thing factory get paid
That's not her
£3.50 an hour.
responsibility.
Do they not work hard?
That's not her responsibility.
So they work very hard.
She's
So
not-
why
would
are they
have a
not
job
rich?
if she wasn't the great creative director that she is?
But it's not even
making the brand worth
not her
money.
fault.
So
But
it's
they
not
are
her
not rich, they are not successful, yet they work very hard. The idea that you can work very hard and get very rich and successful is a myth.
You're talking about physical labour,
That's
about
absolute
making
rubbish, Amy. That is absolute rubbish. What do you want? Communism?
Okay, of course, there is massive anomalies, but as I've said before, if you look at the Forbes 30 under 30, it is very rare.
No, but sorry, can you just repeat what you said? If you work hard, you can't go on... Well, of course it doesn't guarantee
well,
it,
a lot of people
but you've got a
brought up
chance.
thinking that it is, and we have a massive mental health crisis in this country. And do you not think that if people are brought up to think all you've got to do is work hard and then you won't be poor, that's why when you get older, you don't get the career you want, you're not as successful as you imagined you would because you've worked really hard, then you get a bit depressed.
A large part of that is your mentality, though. So, me, for example, by every metric, I shouldn't even have applied to university, shouldn't have even gone to university. I couldn't even afford to go to university. I'm the first person out of my whole family to go to uni and do what I'm doing now at 23. A large part of that is because I went and sought out the opportunities that were available.
And I'm not saying don't do that.
Worked bloody hard.
The biggest difference between people that have privilege and people that don't is, I'm sorry, it's confidence a lot of the time. I've witnessed it myself with people that have been to private schools. Half of the time, they're 10 times more confident than those that come from
And what do you think
underprivileged
contributes
backgrounds.
to confidence? It would be, what is the enemies of social mobility? We have a massive problem with social mobility. We basically don't have any in this country. It'd be inequality. What about the fact that our leaders are much, much, much detached from the
You should
working
look
class?
at Dominique. You should look at me as great examples of people who have no connections, and if you work hard, and McGiff. And you didn't have rich parents, McGiff?
No, I blooming didn't. I came from absolutely nothing. Proper poverty.
Yeah.
Proper poverty.
I think
It's not
every single
competition,
person
I know,
sitting
but-
on this sofa...
Poverty Olympics.
It's not...
So none of us have rich parents. We've all done all right,
Not
okay?
yet.
We've all done
We have
all
a
right.
massive problem with social mobility in this country. It doesn't happen. If you're on the bottom of the ladder, you'll probably stay
but Amy, it can happen. And the
Can
fact
happen.
that
You
Molly
can
May
win the
and the
lottery.
fact that Molly May was criticised for saying it can happen is an indictment on the left in this country who do not like aspirational thinking.
You're saying they
It makes
shouldn't
people
really
feel
bother,
bad
Amy.
about themselves.
No, you're saying they shouldn't really bother because they might fail.
Yeah.
No, I'm
and
not
they might
saying that.
And we've got to try. Let's have an American attitude. Let's have an American attitude. Amy Nicole.
dream doesn't exist.
Oh, Amy Nicole, that's a whole other story. We'll talk about it in a moment. Amy Nicole, Dominic Samuels, Garen McGiffin, do stand by. Because coming up, after it was revealed female patients are more likely to die under a male surgeon's knife,
We don't want to get
should women only be operated on by other women? We'll debate that topic and bring you more of tomorrow's front pages hot off the press as the media buzz continues. And next, how do we challenge Twitter's chilling censorship of free-thinking conservatives? Former Trump senior advisor turned tech pioneer Jason Miller is live next, explaining how he is saving free speech on social media.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's another cold one out there tonight. Not quite as frosty as last night, but still the potential for things to be problematic in the morning. Some heavy snow showers in places and likely to be quite icy as well. We've seen this set of weather fronts crossing the country, bringing rain and some hill snow. Behind it, the isobars pinching together, so a blustery night, and particularly across Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, showers coming in here, northwest England too. A mixture with those showers with hail, sleet, but also some snow, mostly over hills, but even at low levels, you may wake up to a centimetre or two. So we do have a yellow warning in place. Further south and east, most places dry and clear and cold, but not quite as cold as last night. It could be quite icy then first thing in the morning, with further snow showers coming into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and northwest England. A few wintry showers elsewhere, and then we're looking at a zone of cloudier and wetter weather coming into South Wales and southwest England around the middle of the day. That'll be mostly rain, but again, some snow is possible over the hills. Much of the east dry and bright during the course of tomorrow, but feeling cold, especially with a fairly brisk breeze. Still quite a few showers across the south for a time during Friday evening, but then turning largely dry, clear and cold with a more extensive frost before. Out west, more cloud and rain comes marching in for the weekend. That will again bring some snow over the hills of northern England for a time on Saturday morning and across parts of Scotland too. But turning back to rain as we see milder air moving in with this weather system, bringing a fairly soggy Saturday. Western parts turning drier and brighter in the afternoon, but even then there will be showers coming along. Turning a bit milder on Saturday, but obviously not feeling all that pleasant with the breeze and the rain. That scoots away, and Sunday compared to Saturday looking much drier and much brighter, with the winds a touch lighter as well. Goodbye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Today, President Joe Biden marked 1 year since the Capitol Hill riots, sparked by his victory over Donald Trump in the 2020 US election.
The former President of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election. He's done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest is more important than his country's interest, than America's interest. And because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I just know there's no way Biden actually wrote that himself. Trump has since accused Biden of working hard to try and deflect the incompetent job he is doing and using his name to try and further divide America. And people certainly were divided over the Donald's Twitter ban last year and the severing of his direct line to 88 million followers in the wake of the riots. While Twitter claimed Trump's posts about January 6 amounted to glorification of violence and indicated he would not facilitate an orderly transition. It's hard not to see the incident as the first example of the tech Goliath flexing its political muscles, given its subsequent culling of conservative voices. Last month, virologist Robert Malone, who's actually going to be on the show on Monday, had his account permanently suspended due to his COVID views. Then on Sunday, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal account suffered the same fate. And in a worrying turn closer to home, British news aggregation service Politics for All was axed on Tuesday for so-called platform manipulation. This wide-scale censorship is why former Trump advisor Jason Miller has made it his mission to provide a social media platform where free speech reigns. His company, Getter, experienced a huge spike in followers this week as conservative commentator and host of Spotify's most listened-to podcast, Joe Rogan, joined the platform. And he's not the only one. Before I say any more, let's bring in Jason now. Jason, lots to unpack here. Do you think Twitter would have got rid of Trump from its platform regardless of what happened on January the 6th?
Ultimately, yes, and thanks for having me back on. You know, one of the things I'd point out with regard to Twitter is the formal justification they gave for getting rid of President Trump is when President Trump said he would not attend Joe Biden's inauguration. And so it wasn't actually the 6th. They waited for a couple days after that. But it was really only a matter of when, not if, they kicked off President Trump. And I think President Trump was right when he said that if they'll do it to him, they'll do it to anyone. Look what they've done to Dr. Robert Malone, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Congresswoman, as you said. Of course, that led to Joe Rogan coming and joining us on Sunday. We have had 1 million people join our platform this week. We just crossed the 4 million mark overall. We hit number 1 in the Apple social media store, and we hit number 2 in the Google Play Store for all categories. So I think Twitter, though, made a business decision. They knew what they were doing, and they don't care. They want to remove people with a certain point of view.
Yet, Jason, they allow the Taliban, which bludgeons women and gay people to death on Twitter. They allow various Chinese government propaganda Twitter accounts to remain on their platform.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. In addition to the Taliban, they also allow the Ayatollah. They allow the political director for Hamas. And I would be clear, when we talk about a political director for Hamas, that's not somebody who puts up yard signs in advance of an election or volunteers outside of a precinct. That's someone who plots to go and try to kill people of Israel. And so they allow those types of characters on, but then they draw the line and say that President Trump or Dr. Malone, who will be a brilliant guest when you have him join on Monday, they'll go and kick them off. But I think what's happening right now, it's just outright political discrimination. They've made the decision that they support free speech, but only if they agree with your point of view.
And Jason, tell me something that you're doing on Getter. You are particularly going to look after people, right, who are worried about having their platform deleted by Twitter. Is that right? There's a way where you can sort of import your past into Getter so you don't lose all of your history.
Exactly. So folks who might not be familiar with Getter, I'd say we're a marketplace competitor to both Twitter and to Facebook. One of the really cool features that we did was make it possible for people to import their entire tweet history into their Getter timeline. So their intellectual property, their content comes with them, whether it's videos or memes or different things. So you don't lose any of that. And in a couple weeks, we're going to have it where you post on Getter. It'll also show up on Twitter. So you don't even have to go back to Twitter anymore. You're going to communicate with them. Here's the exciting thing, though. Even though we're just now at 4 million users, the engagement level is so high that when the Daily Mail, who joined Getter as well this week, when they've been posting on Getter, they're getting higher engagement than when they post on Twitter. That tells you the level of enthusiasm that our base has on the Getter platform.
Okay, Jason, what about people who say, but you're allowing all of this hate on your platform, that you're allowing extremists on your platform? Is there any truth in that?
No, and actually this is a really good point. I'm glad you bring this up because we do have terms of service. They're very clearly spelled out, and we're not going to allow any racial or religious epithets. We're not going to allow people to threaten violence against someone or dox them with personal information or suggest that people go and harm themselves. And we've also gone through and blocked a number of these terrorist accounts, such as the Ayatollah and the Taliban, so they cannot set up the same name at Getter. Our philosophy is that your free speech rights really extend up to the point where they start to infringe on somebody else's rights. We want to make sure that this is a political safe space, that no one will ever be censored or deplatformed or algorithm for their political beliefs. But we also want to make sure that it's a safe environment for people. So that's something I take very seriously. I probably spend more of my time dealing with moderation and security issues than just about anything else. But that's what the issue is right now when you talk about big tech. This isn't about the extremists or people who are preaching violence. Everyone's on the same page, or virtually everyone, that there's no place for that in the digital town square. That's not political debate. But when it comes to people who dare to say, well, let's go and question what's going on with the lockdowns or the forced mandates, or even if we talk about, say, election concerns, we should be able to have that debate, because here's the point. It doesn't matter if you're in the UK or in the US. If we can't have that conversation online, people are just going to go to their respective ideological corners, and it'll push people even further apart in society.
Well, Jason, I have to say you have convinced me, because I think there has to be a rival to Twitter, at the very least, a very serious rival, because Twitter has to be kept honest, because far too much they are now deciding what is appropriate speech, and I don't think that's their role. So I've had a lot of people asking me to do so, because I've obviously been on Twitter since the start. So I'm going to join Getter, actually. I've been thinking about it for a long time, so I've got a bit of account going, but I've just set up earlier today. And I think right now I'm going to post my... Oh, there it is. There it is. I'm on. OK, so I'm going to type now. I've just joined Getter live on GB News. There we go. First post. Now live. So I'm on Getter. I'll give it a go, Jason. And I hope lots of people join me there at Dan Wootton on Getter. Good luck with it, Jason. We're obviously going to keep in touch and see how it goes. That is former senior advisor to President Trump, chief executive of Getter too. Of course, Twitter, they do have something to say about why people are being removed from their platform. And of course, I will tell you more about that later. But coming up, as the mild Omicron scariant proves the doomsday scientists wrong, is it okay to declare the coronavirus pandemic over? Well, after The Spectator's Douglas Murray did just that, author and broadcaster Tonya Buxton will be live in the studio to discuss whether it's high time we got on with our lives undisturbed. And next in the media buzz, after a study found female patients more likely to die under a male surgeon's knife, should women only be operated by other women? And I'll put that to my girl power superstar panel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
More of tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz, and more front pages just delivered. Tory peer secretly involved in firm given PPE contracts is what's in The Guardian. Michelle Mone and her husband, Douglas Barrowman, were secretly involved in a business that was offered £200 million after Mone referred it to the Cabinet Office, they claim. The Independent leads with the story that Boris Johnson is facing fresh Tory sleaze allegations. The Prime Minister is supposed to have backed a plan for a new Great Exhibition, which has been put forward by the Tory donor who paid for his $142,000 flat refurbishment. The US President Joe Biden also makes the front page after he tore into Donald Trump today in a speech that marked 1 year since the storming of the Capitol. We saw it earlier, of course. The Daily Express reports that the cost of living squeeze will hit over 65s the hardest, as their bills could rise by £340 a year when the government's energy price cap rises in April. And how Kate Middleton's matured into a future queen. The Duchess of Cambridge celebrates her 40th birthday on Sunday after 10 years of marriage with Prince William. The Daily Star claims experts fear space travel is making our astronauts blind. After Boffin's also warned that humans settling on Mars may be driven to cannibalism, it makes you wonder why anyone would bother. Their headline should have gone to Spock savers. The Times reports that the Ghislaine Maxwell case could have a retrial, as we discussed earlier with Megyn Kelly, after it transpires that a second jury was sexually abused as a child and spoke of the experience during deliberations. And Novak Djokovic's family say he has been held captive by the Australia Border Force in a migrant hotel. In tomorrow's Daily Mirror, desperate Andrew's £17 million ski chalet sale. The Prince is trying to force the sale of his Swiss mansion in an effort to pay his legal bills. If not, Mummy will have to step in, I imagine. And that's not a good thing. More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. They're back. It's the columnist and broadcaster Carol McGiffin, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and journalist Amy Nicol. Now, going under the knife for surgery is terrifying enough. Now doomsday scientists are trying to make us worry about what gender our surgeon is. According to research by the University of Toronto, women have a 32% greater chance of death and are 15% more likely to suffer a bad outcome with a man carrying out the procedure. However, the study also found that when female surgeons operated on men, the outcomes were unchanged, if not improved, suggesting the link is one-sided. The research, believed to be the first of its kind, analysed the records of over 1.3 million patients who underwent 21 common procedures, from appendix removals to brain surgery. While the reasons are unclear, scientists warn the findings sound the alarm for urgent action. Carol McGiffin, would you rather be operated on by a woman now that you've learnt this?
I don't really care, Dan. If someone's going to save my life, if they're the right person for the job and they're a qualified surgeon for what they're chopping me up for, then get on with it. I couldn't care less. This just sounds, I don't know, there's just something horribly wrong about this. Like, oh, all men are murderers now. All surgeons are murderers.
Not murderers.
Women.
Just 32% more likely to kill you.
So, Amy, so would you rather have?
That's just the fact.
Would you rather have a female surgeon operate on you, Amy Nicol?
Yes, definitely. Especially, well, this statistic alone is quite interesting. It's gobsmacking, isn't it? That you're 32% more likely to die if you're operated on by a man. But it also opens up a conversation about medical misogyny, which is a problem. I think this study highlights that, and I think we need to look at why these statistics are the way they are. I'm someone that I've got something, a chronic health condition, which is about my reproductive capabilities. That is something that's massively under-researched. Okay? If you have that, you're just kind of signed off. That's an example of medical misogyny. Whereas if you have erectile dysfunction and you're a man, there's plenty of money put in that, plenty of research. There is sexism within medicine.
But at the same time...
And it is just there. So this is just another example of the medical misogyny that does exist.
Dominique, come in here.
At the same time, there's far more funding and research that's put into breast cancer, for example, as opposed to testicular cancer. So I think you could find disparities in any case, and that's my problem.
No way. You look at anything that is strictly limited to females only, endometriosis, PCOS, anything like that. It's so under research. There's so little done about it. And if that was affecting men, it would be treated in a whole different way.
I don't think so, because there's loads of issues that primarily affect women. Say, for example, domestic violence, for example. Although more women are affected by it, there's far more research in terms of sentencing and how domestic violence affects men as well, for example. Even in terms of male suicide, I think that's a good one. And with particular regard to this study, I'm a bit sceptical of how this actually came about and how they actually came to this conclusion. You've got to think about the size of the sample that you used.
Is it relative as well?
Is it relative,
to
the type of people that you
surgeons?
use? And also, you know, it was admitted that we don't know why this is. You know, we don't know that it's because men are just really horrible and hate women and just kill them. We don't know why it is, and that's why
it suggests bias.
But this idea that we need to take urgent action, it's not backed up by evidence.
Make you feel like you would prefer a female surgeon if you were going under the knife?
No, I mean, it could be because there are generally more male surgeons. It could be. We know that men and women naturally do go towards different professions, and it could be that the women that actually go and are successful in these professions are actually just more meticulous, whereas men do go for more roles that include STEM, and they might be more confident, and overall, because there are more of them, they might not be as good as the women because there are a smaller sample of women surgeons. It could literally...
I just think we can't put any more pressure on the health service.
I can't
you know when
understand.
you're going to get a massage and they say to you, oh, would you like a male or female today, sir? Is it going to be like that when you walk into the NHS? I mean, we can't allow it. And by the way, we're not meant to care anymore, Carol, if someone's a man or a woman, are we? We're not allowed.
Yeah, I do know people I've been on planes with who literally bristle when the pilot speaks and it's a woman. So, you know, the people, they're biased against women.
I'm quite amazed that...
And you're not even supposed to notice what job people are doing and what sex they are.
I can't sit with two women who dismiss medical misogyny.
Excuse
like,
me.
medical misogyny is affecting us so much.
I'm not dismissing anything, Amy. I'm just saying, these people are highly trained.
All of them.
Actually, yes, exactly. Do you think that their whole mission in life is to save lives?
Do I think that we do not have a problem with medical misogyny? I do not think that we do have a massive problem with it. I'm saying that they exist.
But Amy, are you seriously saying that a male surgeon would not try and save the life of a female patient as much as he would try to save the life as a male patient?
I'm sure he would try exactly, but unfortunately, he's operating literally in a system which has a bias against women. That's how it is at the moment.
OK. Now,
and the statistics are there.
Now, you probably know the actress Lily James, right? From her role as Lady Rose in Downton Abbey. She was very good in that. She was also in, oh my goodness, my favourite movie, like of all time, Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. And Yesterday, which was terrible. I mean, has anyone seen that movie about the Beatles, Yesterday? With Ed Sheeran? Probably. So you've got Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. Yep, one of the best ever. Yesterday, one of the worst ever. But anyway, her latest gig sees her transformed into 90s Baywatch icon Pamela Anderson. This is going to be amazing, actually. It's a series called Pam and Tommy, and it recounts Pamela's marriage to the Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee and the leaking of their stolen sex tape, which scandalised the 90s. It will premiere next month on Disney+. And let's just say...
Disney?
Disney's gone a bit raunchy with this one, I have to be honest. But her transformation it's just wow. You're not going to believe it.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Please welcome Pamela Anderson.
Did you know anything at all about Mr. Lee before you met him?
I knew he was the drummer for Motley Crue.
Did you find him attractive?
I liked his smile. I still do.
We're so good together, Pamela.
To everlasting love.
We have recently come into possession of a piece of material. This is so private. It's like we're seeing something we're not supposed to be seeing.
Now, Carol, I mean, bless Dominique and Amy, but they're too young.
to remember the sensation of Pammy and Tommy. But honestly, when that tape was leaked, I mean, we'd never seen anything like it before.
No one had ever seen anything like it or done anything like it, especially. I think that tape actually really did well for her, didn't it?
Yeah.
You think the leaking
She
of
became iconic,
Yeah.
even though she was so nervous about it. But Amy, is it true that Lily James is your old classmate? You went to school with her.
Yeah, I don't know how she'll feel about me, but yeah, she was in my class. She's called Lily Thompson. I don't know. She changed her name, and yeah, now she's Lily James.
Was she always someone who you saw being a star?
Oh, absolutely. So we did Little Shop of Horrors, and she got the part of Audrey, and I was a tramp.
And did she come from privilege? Did she come from...
Yeah, she did, actually. I believe she's related to a very famous director.
So she's
she's
another Molly May.
Yeah.
She's another Molly May.
I think the amount our parents paid for that school would suggest as much as well.
So you come from privilege too, all right then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right then, you're the privileged one on this panel, love. You didn't reveal that in the last conversation, did you? Amy Nicole, Dominic Samuels, Karen McGiffin, do stand by. Just want to make a note following our interview with Jason Miller earlier. As I said, we are giving an opportunity for Twitter to respond because, you know, I always want both sides of the argument here. And in regards to the permanent suspension of the Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, they say we permanently suspended the account for repeated violations of our COVID-19 misinformation policy. We've been clear that per our strike system for this policy, we will permanently suspend accounts for repeated violations of the policy. And they went on, where accounts repeatedly violate this policy, we will use a strike system to determine if further enforcement actions should be applied. So there you go. Coming up, the crowning moment of the show, as I reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. And as Omicron's mildness proves that damaging COVID restrictions can no longer be justified, The Spectator's associate editor Douglas Murray boldly declared today that the pandemic is over. I have to agree with him. Author Tonya Buxton will be here live in the studio to discuss that next, straight after we take a look at what's coming up on Monday's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, one of the victims of Twitter's war on free speech, virologist Dr. Robert Malone, who was censored over his controversial vaccine views, sits down for an in-depth chat with me. Is Gen Z too sensitive, and could their obsession with feelings be making them miserable? Star Daily Telegraph columnist and author Celia Walden has been investigating. Also joining me, social media sensation and free speech champion Maya Tusi, GBNews host Neil Oliver, and the positive professor Carol Sikora. And I break down the day's top headlines with my superstar panel, the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, social commentator Esther Kraku, and senior reporter at the iNewspaper Benjamin Butterworth. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, the Omicron scariant has defied the doomsday scientists and proven to be nothing more than a mild cold. Easy to catch, but easy to recover from. And it's becoming increasingly clear that lurching in and out of damaging COVID restrictions at the expense of the economy, our children's future, and our psychological well-being can no longer be justified. Well, The Spectator's very influential associate editor Douglas Murray thinks it's time we declare the pandemic over altogether. He's written in this week's magazine, "I am fully aware of how careful we should be, yet here I go. I think that the coronavirus is over. Or at least it will become clear in the next few weeks that it is over. That is not to say that no one will get COVID or any of its variants, or that insane rules will not continue to be applied, largely by Celts in this country. But it is to say that it will be harder and harder to apply any such rules, let alone enforce them. And that as the first weeks of 2022 roll on, people will increasingly realise that we are done with all of this." Author and anti-lockdown campaigner plus GB News presenter Tonya Buxton joins me now. Tonya, very significant this from Douglas Murray, isn't it? He is now officially declaring coronavirus over. Do you agree?
Absolutely, I do agree. And what was going through my mind is, what is the reason that so many people want it to continue? Because it is over. As a virus, it's over. It's endemic. Omicron has been the best thing that could happen. It's very contagious, but it stays in the upper respiratory system. No, I'm not a doctor before anybody starts tweeting in and say that.
But you mean it's over as a dangerous virus that is going to kill a lot of people on mass?
Absolutely. Well, you know, it was... COVID has been a horror, but the way we have behaved around it has been far more horrific. And that's something that a lot of people don't want us to start looking at. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people don't want it to be over. But I had a little chat with Professor Mark Antonio Spadler, who's written this incredible report about COVID anxiety syndrome. And I wanted to know, why do you think so many, especially young people, young, vibrant people, where COVID can do nothing to them, want to hang on to this? And he was saying it's a little bit like an abusive relationship. You know, the government has put their people into, across the world, they put their peoples into this abusive relationship. And it's very hard to let go of that abusive leader that's telling you what to do. It's a form of learnt helplessness. And if you give up on distancing and masks and that kind of behaviour that you've been told to have, it's frightening, because we've been put under this big mass hypnosis through the media. And so people don't want to let go of it. And that's the more worrying thing. Douglas Murray is completely right. COVID as a dangerous virus is over.
Do you know,
what
you first introduced this concept of COVID anxiety syndrome to me, Tonya, and since you did, I have to say, I'm diagnosing people every day. Yeah. There are so many of them around, and I just say, you poor thing. You've just got COVID anxiety syndrome. A lot of our leaders seem to have it too, though, Tonya, right?
They really do, and I really feel for the young people. You know, I'm an old woman, and I kind of have a different way of thinking. I've lived a certain life, but I think a lot of young people, this 2-year period has changed them in a way that we are going to see the damages of this change. And I'm just talking about young adults now, I'm not talking about children yet. But young adults have been changed in a way that will affect them throughout their lives. It's going to take a long time to undo the damage that we and our governments have done to the people. And it's really important that we have to cut that COVID umbilical cord, that umbilical cord of making us feel safe. Oh, well, you've got to be safe, stay safe. If anybody says to me, stay safe again, it takes all my willpower not to just slap them, because I don't want to live a
Please
life.
stop saying stay safe. Tonya, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass, though. And the superstar panel is back with me. Carol McGiffin, let's start off with your nomination for Greatest Briton, please.
It's Jeremy Clarkson. And the reason is because I think he has just brought so much life back to farming, and I love the way he doesn't care what anybody thinks. I love the way he's winding up all the people in his village, and just trying to make... It really has made something of farming. Someone quoted in the Times and said that he'd done more for farming in 2 years than Defra had done in 30 or something. So he's my greatest Briton. He's hilarious as well.
Dominique, your choice is going to shock a lot of people tonight.
Yeah,
your greatest Briton.
Mine's pretty random, but mine today is Vladimir Putin.
Explain, please.
Yeah, because in Russia, the Russian government has announced that they're going to have a complete change of policy for repeat child sex offenders, and they've proposed that child sex offenders spend time in the Arctic doing physical labour for life. And that's in light of a 5-year-old girl.
For life. I like that. No, that's a good punishment. I agree, good punishment.
Is that the same place they put LGBT people?
Amy Nicole, your greatest Briton nomination.
My greatest Briton nomination is Eamon Holmes for a fantastic start on GB News and making it an even better place to choose.
Well, you know, Eamon Holmes is always my greatest Briton. So of course he's the greatest Briton tonight, Amy Nicole.
I won!
No, you won!
Hello,
is that a first?
That is a first.
Carol McGiffin, your nomination for Union Jackass, please.
It's got to be Rishi Sunak, unfortunately, because putting up national insurance when people are going to be really properly struggling with fuel prices and the cost of living and everything else, and not backing down and saying it's justified, I'm sorry, wrong.
Amy Nicole, your Union Jackass nominee.
Well, I love her, but it's got to be Molly May Hague. But for the points we said earlier, but I'd just like to point out that 2/3 of the cabinet are privately educated, despite only 7% of the population.
Okay.
And there's not a better example that social mobility is a little bit of a myth.
And Dominique Samuels, your nominee.
Mine is Education Secretary Nadine Zahawi for promising Julia Hartley-Brewer that he'd come forward with evidence for masking kids in schools.
Where is it?
That was released was actually an argument against face masks in schools. Really embarrassing, actually.
Well, I think they're all good choices, actually, apart from Amy's, because I obviously think Molly May did a great thing. Union Jackass, so it's got to be Rishi Sunak. Come on, Rishi. You know you've got to cut taxes, so well done.
Do it.
Carol McGiffin, and thank you so much to such a fabulous superstar panel tonight. Carol McGiffin, Dominique Samuels and Amy Nicole. I've loved being back with you this week. Thank you so much for your company. I'm back Monday night at 9 p.m. Headliners is next, though. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's another cold one out there tonight. Not quite as frosty as last night, but still the potential for things to be problematic in the morning. Some heavy snow showers in places and likely to be quite icy as well. We've seen this set of weather fronts crossing the country, bringing rain.